In 2016, satellites picked up something buried under 2 kilometers of Antarctic ice. It's shaped like nothing natural, and nobody has been able to explain what it is. We're going to get to exactly what it is by the end of this video, but first, I need to show you 9 other things that make even less sense. Because whatever's under that ice might connect to all of them, and once you see the pattern, you won't be able to unsee it. Every case here is real, documented, and still officially unexplained. This is not a conspiracy video. This is what scientists themselves admit they don't understand. Stay till the end for the Antarctic answer. Subscribe now so you don't lose this one halfway through. Mystery number 9. In a small town called Taos, New Mexico, roughly 2% of residents can hear a low, constant hum. Nobody else can hear it, not even standing right next to them. It's been going on since the 1990s. Sufferers describe it as a diesel engine idling somewhere just out of range, constant, low, and maddening. The US government has actually funded multiple investigations into this. They've tested radio waves, underground pipelines, military equipment. Every explanation has been ruled out. Similar hums have now been reported in Windsor, Canada, Bristol, England, Auckland, New Zealand. Same symptoms, same 2% of people, no connection between the locations that anyone can find. Some researchers now think it might not be a sound at all, but a form of low-frequency electromagnetic signal that only certain inner ears can detect. But if that's true, nobody has found the source. It's just out there, somewhere, still humming, right now, as you're watching this. Mystery number 8, and this one took scientists 60 years to even partially explain. Heavy rocks in Death Valley that move by themselves across dry ground, leaving long trails behind them. Some of these rocks weigh over 300 kilograms. No footprints, no tire tracks, no visible force, just a rock and a trail proving it moved hundreds of meters on its own. In 2014, scientists finally partially solved it: thin ice sheets and wind, moving under very specific rare conditions. But here's the part that still bothers researchers. The conditions required are so specific, so rare, that they only explain a fraction of the recorded movements. Dozens of trails were documented that happened when none of those conditions were present at all. Which means the official explanation covers most of the mystery, but not all of it. Some of those trails are still, technically, unexplained. Mystery number 7. In 2011, a team of Swedish divers scanning the Baltic Sea floor for shipwrecks found something that made them stop the expedition entirely. A sonar image showed a massive, disc-shaped object sitting on the seafloor nearly 60 meters across, with strange geometric ridges and what looked like a debris trail leading up to it. The shape was so unusually round and structured that even the professional sonar operators, people used to seeing natural rock formations every day, said it looked wrong. When divers finally reached it, they found the object appeared to have scorch marks and, according to some equipment readings, disrupted their electronics whenever they got close. Geologists have proposed it might be a natural rock formation shaped by ancient glacial movement, but no one has been able to test it directly, because access to the site has been heavily restricted since the discovery. So more than a decade later, this remains exactly what it was the day it was found. A massive, geometric, electronics disrupting object on the ocean floor that nobody has actually confirmed the origin of. Mystery number 6. Deep in the Siberian wilderness sits a massive cone-shaped mound of crushed limestone 40 meters tall, perfectly symmetrical, with a crater in the center. Local hunters had known about it for generations, but avoided it entirely, calling it the Fire Eagle's Nest and warning that animals who went near it got sick and died. When Soviet scientists finally investigated it in 1949, they found something strange. Trees growing near the mound showed accelerated, abnormal growth rings, as if something had sped up their aging. Radiation was ruled out, so was a meteorite impact. The rock composition doesn't match any known meteorite material found anywhere else on Earth. Some geologists now believe it may be linked to a rare underground volcanic gas explosion, but the specific mechanism and why it's perfectly symmetrical still hasn't been confirmed by anyone. Locals still won't camp near it, and to this day, it remains one of the very few geological formations on the planet that geologists genuinely cannot fully classify. We're 4 mysteries in, 5 left, and I promise, they only get harder to explain from here. If you're already hooked, subscribe now. Let's keep going. Mystery number 5. In July 1518, a woman in Strasbourg stepped into the street and began dancing. She didn't stop for days. Within a month, over 400 people had joined her. This is documented in city records, physician notes, and church logs. It's not a legend. Hundreds of real people danced uncontrollably, some for weeks, until they collapsed from exhaustion. Some reportedly died. City officials, believing dancing would cure the affliction, actually hired musicians and built a stage to encourage more dancing. It made things dramatically worse. Modern theories range from mass psychogenic illness caused by extreme stress and famine, to ergot poisoning from contaminated rye bread, which can cause hallucinations and spasms. But neither theory fully explains why it lasted for weeks, why it spread specifically through dancing, or why other towns with the same famine and the same grain never experienced anything like it. Nearly 500 years later, historians and doctors still argue about what actually happened in that square, and it's genuinely one of the strangest documented events in European history. Mystery number 4. On August 15, 1977, a radio telescope in Ohio picked up a signal from deep space so unusual, the astronomer who found it circled it on the printout and wrote one word, "Wow." The signal was 30 times stronger than the normal background noise from deep space. It lasted exactly 72 seconds, the precise length of time the telescope was pointed at that spot in the sky before Earth's rotation moved it away. It came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, from a region of space with no known planets, no known stars close enough to explain it, and no man-made satellites in that direction at that time. Despite pointing telescopes at that exact spot thousands of times since, on the exact same frequency, nobody has ever detected it again. Not once. Not for nearly 50 years. Theories range from a comet nobody knew existed at the time, to a rare natural burst from a distant magnetar, to when this is what the original researcher himself said, a signal that came from somewhere or someone we don't understand. It remains the strongest candidate for an artificial signal from deep space ever recorded, and it happened once, for 72 seconds, and never again. Mystery number 3. Every year, people vanish from US national parks under circumstances so strange, a former police detective spent a decade collecting the cases into a pattern nobody can explain. The pattern includes things like victims found without shoes, sometimes miles from where the shoes were later located, search dogs that pick up a scent, then completely lose it at the exact same spot every single time. Weather that inexplicably turns violent right as the search begins, people found in locations that had already been thoroughly searched, sometimes multiple times, before they suddenly appeared there. Park officials and skeptics point out that wilderness is simply dangerous, and confirmation bias makes people see patterns in random tragedies. That's a completely reasonable explanation for most cases. But even the National Park Service itself has acknowledged that certain specific cases, involving small children found alive many miles from where they vanished, with no memory of how they got there, remain officially unresolved. Most of these mysteries probably have mundane, if tragic, explanations, but a small handful of cases genuinely don't fit any pattern investigators have been able to construct. Mystery number 2. On June 30, 1908, something exploded over Siberia with the force of nearly 1,000 Hiroshima bombs. It flattened 80 million trees across 2,000 square kilometers, and to this day, no fragments of whatever caused it have ever been found. The leading theory is a meteor or comet fragment that exploded in the atmosphere before hitting the ground, an airburst powerful enough to level a forest, but leave no crater. But over a century of expeditions have found 0 meteorite fragments, 0 impact crater, and 0 definitive physical evidence of what actually exploded, despite the blast being detected by seismographs and barometers as far away as England. Some scientists have proposed it was a small black hole passing through the planet, or an unusually large chunk of ice that vaporized completely, on impact theories that remain genuinely debated in scientific literature. This is the largest impact event in recorded human history, and it happened just over 100 years ago, recently enough to be documented in detail, and still, nobody actually knows for certain what caused it. It's a hole in the historical record the size of a small country, and it's sitting right there, still unresolved, for anyone who wants to go dig into it. And now, mystery number 1. Let's go back to where we started. Something buried under 2 kilometers of Antarctic ice. In 2016, a team analyzing gravity and magnetic field data from NASA's satellites noticed a massive disruption near a region called Wilkes Land, a nearly 50-kilometer wide anomaly sitting under the ice. The leading explanation is that it's an enormous ancient impact crater, potentially from an asteroid roughly twice the size of the one that killed the dinosaurs, striking Earth around 250 million years ago. If confirmed, this would make it the largest impact crater ever found on Earth, timed suspiciously close to the Permian mass extinction, the deadliest extinction event in the planet's entire history, which wiped out roughly 90% of all species alive at the time. But here's the problem: nobody has actually drilled down to confirm it. The ice above it is over 2 kilometers thick, in one of the most remote, hostile places on the entire planet. Which means everything we know about it comes from gravity readings and magnetic field anomalies, taken from orbit. Nobody has physically touched it, seen it, or confirmed exactly what shape it actually is underneath all that ice. So the honest answer is this: something enormous is sitting under Antarctic ice, roughly the size of a large country, possibly connected to the worst extinction event Earth has ever experienced, and we genuinely don't know exactly what it is. 10 mysteries. A hum only some people can hear, rocks that move by themselves, an object on the ocean floor nobody's allowed near, a crater that ages trees, a dancing plague nobody could stop, a radio signal from deep space that happened once and never again. People vanishing from national parks with no trail to follow, the largest explosion in recorded history with no crater and no fragments. And something the size of a country, buried under Antarctic ice, that nobody has ever actually touched. 10 mysteries. 10 cases where the world's best scientists looked directly at the evidence, and the honest answer was still, we don't know. And that's genuinely the most exciting part. Not that these are unsolved, but that they're solvable, waiting for someone curious enough to actually go look. If your brain is still buzzing from any of these, subscribe now, because next week, we're covering 10 more mysteries, and honestly, some of them might be even harder to walk away from. Comment below which one of these 10 would you actually want scientists to finally solve first. See you next week, and if you figure any of these out before we do, seriously, let us know.